What were the hits and misses of CES 2022? And will Sonos' victory over Google change the way we use smart speakers?
Vertical Hold is proudly brought to you by Aussie Broadband, changing the game with their award-winning network and Australian-based support.
Welcome back to Vertical Hold Behind the Tech News, the award-winning tech podcast where we catch up with Australia's leading tech journalists to dive into the big stories of the week. But you probably already knew that. I'm Alex Kidman, and you probably already knew that too, but what you don't know is that this week I'm not joined, as usual, by Adam Turner. He's taking a well-earned break on a beach somewhere, earning his 20%, as you do. So, what Adam's arranged, as this week's show is mostly about CES, and that's held in Las Vegas, is for a special, one-time only, true Las Vegas legend to join the show this week. Direct from legendary magic duo Penn and Teller, we welcome to the virtual Vertical Hold Studios the one and only Teller. Yeah, I think I see the problem here. Look, Teller, love your work, but this just isn't going to work out. We're going to go with Plan B, the even more magical Jennifer Dudley-Nicholson, National Tech Editor from News Corp. Jen, if you could perform a magic trick, what would it be?
I think I just become invisible, and then maybe nobody, including a virus, could find me.
I like the way you think. Equally magical in his own special way, and joining us also in the virtual Vertical Hold Studios, from Pickr, it's Leigh Stark. Leigh, what would your magic trick of choice be?
I was going to say smoke bomb and disappear, and that would be it. Hello.
We're tech journalists. We all clearly think alike. And this time of year, we all tend to work alike as well, because the US Consumer Electronics Show pretty much defines the shape of what we do in early January, and of course, an awful lot of what we do throughout the year. And in those precedented times, remember those? You'd probably have found all three of us reporting live from a casino floor with not enough sleep and too much caffeine in our systems.
Is there such a thing?
There definitely is, sadly.
There is no limit.
There should be no limit. But look, that hasn't clearly been the story this year. But CES in Vegas still happened, albeit on a smaller scale and over fewer days. Leigh, why don't we start with TVs? They're pretty much a CES staple. Who bet on True Black and won big this year?
Well, in previous years, the company that would have bet on black and won would have been LG, because LG has been the maker of OLED panels for 5, 6, 7 years, roughly. It's been so long, I can't even remember the exact date they started. This year, it was actually Samsung, which hasn't really had a hand in OLED for a long time. There were the LG-Samsung battles where they traded employees-ish, and now Samsung has its own. And what's so special about Samsung's one is actually one it didn't quite launch, but it actually won a CES award for, an innovation award. It's called QD OLED. So it is an OLED panel that has basically been covered in quantum dots, which is a neat way of saying OLED with even more impressive colors, with more vivid and dynamic colors. And it's such none of us have seen it. We're all just taking a gamble about what it probably looks like remotely. It's so bright that we can see it all the way from Vegas. But Samsung and Sony both have them. Sony is using Samsung's from what we understand. So Sony launched its Bravia with Quantum Dot OLED first. Samsung still hasn't quite launched it. And that's it's now being seen as kind of like the holy grail of TVs. OLED is great, and LG has some improvements to its OLED panels, most of it happening on the processor side of things. But Samsung's whole Quantum Dot OLED, the conversations I keep having with people about this seem to suggest it's kind of like the new plasma of TVs. It is now the benchmark of what these amazing TVs are supposed to look like.
So Sony, unless I'm very much mistaken, was doing OLED TVs with presumably LG panels in them. They've now jumped camp to Samsung, yeah?
At least for this panel. We don't know necessarily, because Sony also has regular OLED panels as well. And Sony doesn't make OLED. Sony, I actually don't even know if it makes its mini LED, to be completely honest. It does have Triluminos, and has for a long time. Triluminos, it's just its version of Quantum Dot. That's all it's ever called, Quantum Dot. But they're effectively using OLED for a lot of its regular OLED TVs, and then they've got Quantum Dot OLED. And that's basically the next level of OLED. If you have a lot of money and you want to spend it on the best picture quality, Quantum Oled. Now, because none of us have seen this, I can't tell you for my money whether it's actually going to be better than standard OLED. Quantum dots do enhance color. The whole nature of them is effectively a crystal that effectively is overlaid, or a particle that's overlaid over a pixel that purifies or hones the color more aggressively. Is that something you could probably do by tweaking the color in your TV settings? Very possibly, but this happens from the TV standpoint itself. It's not the only technology. There's also more mini LEDs. That was a technology that launched last year. It's kind of seen as the inexpensive-ish alternative to OLED. Effectively, it's a whole bunch, about thousands of tiny LEDs that more directly control backlighting instead of the way OLED does it, which is individually on a pixel-by-pixel basis. So there's more of those. And Samsung also has its stupidly expensive micro LED technology, which I think we've all seen before, but it's basically a wall of color.
Yeah, I was going to say, Jen, I can recall being at a CES with you, looking at, and I think they even called it the wall.
They did.
There was the wall. Yes, you had to put the wall together, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
This would appear to be the year in which we might be able to buy the wall.
How much money do you make?
Well,
as a journalist.
I'm a freelance tech journalist. I'm right down the pay scales. But Jen, if you had the opportunity, if money was not the big issue of it, would you replace your walls with a micro LED Samsung TV?
Look, call me old-fashioned, but I like walls that just hold up the house. I don't necessarily need them all to be televisions. I haven't gone full Jamiroquai yet, and I just don't have the hats to kind of back up that sort of household.
You don't have a conveyor belt or a belt built into your home that you can dance to?
I mean, obviously not yet.
Okay.
Maybe once I get the walls, I'll be more tempted to do that. Look, it's an interesting idea, and this idea that you could have modular televisions that you could create. You could make them, as big as you want. You could make them fill the space. I mean, certainly we've seen a lot of people going to mount their televisions, which makes me very nervous still, because these things are a whopping great lumps of technology, and just like putting them on a wall and trusting a bracket makes me nervous by itself. So the idea you could come along and just kind of randomly put these kind of TV tiles together is also a bit nerve-wracking. Maybe if people have giant houses, they'll be into this kind of stuff, and I love to see this kind of thing happen. I think it's probably going to be more useful for commercial installations than it is for sitting at home and putting up a TV that you can binge all the stuff on.
So, Leigh, you said you'd probably award the prize, pending review, obviously, to Samsung. I have 3 letters that stick in my head that suggest maybe Samsung shouldn't win the prize. And those 3 letters, and I don't even get why I'm talking about them in terms of TVs, but those 3 letters are sadly N, F, and T. What's an NFT doing in my Samsung TV?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't get the big deal about them. I kind of do. I mean, you got Samsung's whole idea of the frame, which is showing images as a piece of artwork on it, and LG does it as well, but they just don't have a set piece for it. Samsung has lifestyle TVs, and I kind of get the logic of what they're trying to convey. I don't agree with it. Don't get me wrong. The whole NFT thing kind of reached fever pitch over the break, and I'm sick of hearing about it, to the point where I wish these 3 letters didn't mean that. I wish they meant something else. Anything other than
television.
Yeah, that's right. Non-fungible television. I would take a non-fungible television at this point over a non-fungible token any day of the week, without doubt. I kind of get what they're doing. The idea of at least having you own a piece of NFT artwork and able to show it. I think that's all it's supposed to be. But it's just everything spiraled out of control, because you have NFT in video games, you've got NFTs in apps, you've got NFTs everywhere. It's just them joining the NFT bandwagon and trying to find some way of making it work on a TV. That's not going to be useful for 98% of people out there. Only the 2% of crypto idiots that I already want to hit on the head with a pole.
So I can take it from that you're not going to want to sit and buy an NFT with your TV remote. Make a bad investment while binging Netflix.
Look. I'm a journalist with a very small amount of crypto that I shouldn't have bought in the first place, and so probably not.
I'm going to say the number of times somebody sitting on a television remote control in my house has resulted in me putting on a random channel. Like I
Were they cats?
Well, no, this is mainly so the small people butts in the household. I gotta say, if every time that happened, I ended up buying an NFT, I would be so poor and disappointed with my lifestyle choices.
Well, Speaking of lifestyle choices and Samsung, one of the surprising things to come out of CES was a new Samsung phone, because CES isn't exactly a phone show. Jen, tell me about the Galaxy S21 FE and whether I should be excited.
Maybe. I mean, I was a bit disappointed because I'd actually recently recommended somebody buy the other FE because we did have an earlier FE, but it was much earlier and it was a good, like, kind of, cut down version of a Samsung fancy phone. And I thought it was a
Great little
reasonable
handset.
recommendation to make this person. And then another one came out. So I guess I'm just not going to chat to them for a bit. Anyway, like in general, I'm supportive of the FE version of Samsung phones because I think that there is a market there for basically a slightly less fancy version of a flagship phone, and I'm all for that. Whether you call it a fan edition or not, I don't mind. And it was interesting though because this one's come out. It's at $999, which just happens to be the exact price of the Google Pixel phone, which we saw do so well towards the end of last year. And I'm not saying that those two things are definitely related, but I'm suspicious, not just a little suspicious, like superstitious. And yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting, and it's come out this week. I think it'll do reasonably well. However, it's very close to that other phone conference that we're talking about, Mobile World Congress, and I feel like Samsung might be putting out maybe phones with a different number in them, and maybe people should hang off to wait to see what those exactly have inside them and how much they cost.
Gosh, you're diplomatic today.
I'm trying, man. I'm trying.
Yeah, look, I agree with you. The S20 FE, the prior one, was a great phone, and I think it held its position in the market way longer than a lot of Android phones because it was such good value when it launched. This one, I think, is tougher. It's a lot closer in price, not just to the Pixel, but even to the S21
Mm.
that it's meant to be the FE of. If you shop around, it's not hard to get a discount on those. And as you say, yeah, the S22 is probably coming next month. Please, Samsung, don't point your missiles at me for saying that, but it seems to be likely.
I don't think this is a huge secret within
Yeah.
the industry. I mean, you could pretty much get your phone cases now for it, I'm sure.
Mm.
So I think, yeah, the advice to kind of wait and see. Speaking of waiting and seeing, actually, TCL also launched a bunch of phones. CES being CES, the ones they specifically wanted to talk about were the US only models. Leigh, I know you're across those. Is now the time to get excited about the budget Chinese phone maker?
No. No, no, it's not. I mean, you're gonna hear more about the stuff from Mobile World Congress, and honestly, it was kind of surprising. A lot of the TCL stuff was pretty much US centric in general, which confused, I know, a bunch of Australians sitting in on the briefings at the time. Yeah, it's just wait if you're going to look at buying a 2022 phone, just wait till 2022 actually begins before you buy a 2022 phone.
I hate to inform you, Leigh, but 2022 has actually started.
Lies, all lies. It's all lies. We're still at the end of 2021, man. Nothing's changed. I'm still in this white box.
I think we can agree that at the very least it needs a reboot because it's just not working so far.
This is like 2022 version beta 3 or something.
It's 2020 also.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, to get back on that TCL track, I will say, I mean, having just reviewed, I think it was the 20R, that was a surprisingly decent phone, not a stellar device, but a surprisingly solid one. So maybe TCL's got something there. They also showed off more glasses, the NXT Wear Air.
Yeah, it's an HMD. It's really interesting that the TCL does these sorts of things. I still love VR headsets. I know I'm weird that way, and I'm too cheap to go out by myself an Oculus Quest. Not that I would ever have the time to with another child, but I love the idea of at least being able to immerse myself and ignore the world. HMDs are kind of still a weird area for me because I love the idea of being able to sit on a plane, wear my glasses, except for the fact that I'm obviously clearly not sitting on a plane anymore because of the bubble of 2021 we
But
still
you could
find
put your
ourselves in.
glasses on and pretend you were on a plane. 'Cause
Totally.
you wouldn't know any different.
Totally. And the thing that confused me about the Nextwear is that in talking to TCL, they hadn't actually considered making any of the glasses polarized for UV. So you can get the Nextwear Air and they actually look like sunnies, but if you look at the sun, it's a very bad idea. So don't do that. Something they hadn't actually thought about. Cool idea still that it's there. It's still wired. It's still USB Type-C. And I don't know if anyone would... Did anyone spend $800 on the previous model? Because I don't know anyone who did.
Their claim was that they sold out. Like, they sold everything that they'd shipped into Australia. So
Did they ship more than 5 units in?
this we don't know. That is fair and true, but somebody bought them.
Yeah.
Somebody bought them. That much is kind of
They also
clear.
have a tablet which it's not quite e-ink, but it's kind of like this weird middle ground. The Next Paper, I think they call it, and it's kind of the previous version had this really weird catch. They said they fixed it, by the way. The previous version had no backlight, so if you wanted to use it at night, it came with a clip-on light, which itself is like this kind of. I love watching your face on this, Jen. This is like the raised eyebrows. It's sort of like this weird.
I believe that this was very early model Kindle that we're talking about. I'm pretty sure I've still got that one, and they bricked it.
There was a Next Paper variant. I remember having this discussion with TCL, and they actually required a clip-on light to be shipped with a version of it that went to China because it didn't have a backlight. But they said they fixed that now, so that's good that we've got those sorts of teething issues out of the way. I don't know about Android tablets in general anymore, because the more I look at Android tablets, the more I go, and I say this being a reviewer who loves reviewing Android devices, the iPad to me is kind of like the good middle ground tablet you would buy before you'd buy an Android tablet. And at that point, there are plenty of other Android tablets who do an amazing job outside of TCL. But I'm always excited to see a screen technology that does a great job. I just have not seen what this one looks like. And so it's really hard to say with a degree of certainty whether TCL's amazing new paper technology is actually going to be any better than anyone else's, really.
It's a neat application of e-ink, although it is not my favourite application of e-ink
The
from
car?
CES.
Oh, here we
go. I don't know if it's the BMW 9 or the BMW iX.
It's
or
the
BMW
iX Flow.
The
It
iX
is.
Flow. And for those who don't know what I'm talking about, this is a BMW, so already a high-end vehicle, but it's literally wrapped
Do
in
you know
e-ink.
how high end that car costs without the flow, without the paper, in
I
Australia?
don't think we've got time left in the show for you to name that many zeros.
Yeah,
Leigh.
it's the standard one is basically without that it's about 130 grand minimum, and this is before it's been classed with like the M tweaks. I just learned how to drive this summer, so I'm doing okay.
And that's before you buy like 200 Kindles to just like paper
Slap on
I think I might have to buy 200 Kindles now.
But I like. Sorry, Jen, you go.
It's a really interesting use of technology, but it blows my mind that you could potentially go out and you could buy this very fancy car, and then you could like strap all of this weird stuff to the outside. And again, very interesting use of technology. I'm really interested in that. But you can have any color you want as long as it's black or it's grey.
Hey, 50
Any
Shades
colour
of
in the
Grey
world.
without the bad literary.
Oh, even maybe. I mean, if you could print words on it, that would be something. You could read the
can
news on your
technically.
car. Yeah, sure.
Well, it is just a bunch of Kindles strapped to the outside of a car. So, logically speaking, I reckon it will not be long before one business or another absolutely does this. Just as, eat at famous rays across the side of the
And
car.
then how long before somebody hacks it and starts putting, you've cut them off in traffic, so all of a sudden, you've got wanker on the back of your car.
About
like
Look, you're driving around in a BMW covered in Kindles. I think that's almost
maybe that
goes
says
without
it
saying.
enough. Yeah, fine.
But out of all the things BMW announced, that was the coolest one of them. I mean, it also had a 30-inch screen at the back of the car, and I just looked at it and go, why would you need that? Every kid has an iPad. If you can afford a car with a 30-inch screen on it, your kids have iPads as well.
Because if you're spending that much on a car, give me the 30-inch screen in the back.
No, give me the Kindles. I want to decorate the living crap out of my car.
I think we've come through, though. I think we've broken through the barrier that always occurs at a CES. The kind of weirder and wonderful products that were out there. Jen, you mentioned this to me before, and this was one that had gotten past me. 2 words that got me very, very excited. Tell me about robot cats.
Look,
What?
since when? I can't believe you guys have missed it. So this was early in the show. This company came out because there's an event normally called CES Unveiled that happens just before the media day and the show opens. Know the format very well, even though I didn't get to go. There was a Japanese company there. So of course it starts this way. And this is a company that has previously made kind of a robotic cat pillow that you can hug and is apparently meant to like purr and be very soothing, even though it doesn't have a head. This robot cat, I know.
I was not expecting that detail.
I hid the lead there a bit. This one has a head, and it's designed to nibble on your finger. So the whole idea,
Designed to.
yeah, this is supposed to
a robot
be,
that's going to eat me when I'm dead, isn't it?
Probably.
So it's like a cat.
No, that's the real cat. That's what the real cat does. This is supposed to like just get you into that mood of getting ready for it. So
Well, it's getting you in the mood, Alex.
the Amagami Ham was designed so that you can put your finger in this robot cat's mouth and it will nibble on your finger and you don't have to tell it to stop because bad behavior is rewarded in the robot world. It's fine.
I'm going to hell, but sex toys got real weird at CES this year.
It's finger. And I really want to see this. Like it's fascinating to me that anyone could find this soothing. And I signed up to the newsletter, but it's all in Japanese, so I've got some learnings.
Well, you've got a perfect host here who can read that now to you.
Maybe.
I will send him on my emails, and he can tell me how I can buy an Amagami Ham, and then immediately regret it. But there's always weird stuff at this show, and it's kind of like the stuff that you go for, because like there was one year where there was a smart fork, and I still haven't got over that. I don't understand what its purpose is.
I think I saw that.
There was some other cool stuff too involving like that virus that you might have been heard about a bit. There was a breathalyzer for that, and apparently they're selling them even though that doesn't have FDA approval yet. But you can spend $359 on a breathalyzer to tell you whether you got COVID or not.
Seems like
I
it would
want
be faster.
It to be real.
Seems like it would be faster than finding a rat in New South Wales at this point.
Well, sure. I mean, I smell a rat, but also, if it did work, that would be great. I saw a mask where you actually have to plug it in and it's battery powered, and like that just seems so stupid.
Is this the Razer one, the Zephyr Pro?
No, so this is one from a French company. I don't know how you pronounce it. It's Airzom. It's got an X in the middle of it, and it's battery powered. And they had photos of like a bloke, riding around on his bicycle with his battery powered giant mask on his face. And honestly, if that's the future, I don't want it.
Normal situation.
I'm going back to my robot cats. That's just weird.
Sorry, that's just weird.
What? Robot cats is weird compared to like riding around on a bicycle with a battery powered mask on your face.
Just do both. Just ride around with the cat on your lap.
I do want to get back to the masks in a second. It was specifically the Razer one, because there was a big detail about that came out. But while we're still on cats, I should point out one thing that I spotted, which was the Leo Lu 2, which is a smart cat litter box. And they've had those kind of mechanized ones that sweep themselves for a while now.
Uh-huh.
But this one has an added detail. And Jen, I know you're a cat person, so you may or may not appreciate this. Do you want a smart cat litter box that tracks and records your cat's toileting habits?
No, I don't.
I think we actually have something like this already launched in Australia, because I wrote a gift guide last year, like at Christmas, that is really similar to what you're describing.
Look, I want the waste to go away, but much like, when my husband comes in and tells me about his toileting issues, I don't want to know. Like, if he wanted to launch the Bog blog at some point, and I don't want to know, and I don't think anybody else needs to know. No.
And if you've just
Sounds like a crap idea.
If you've just tuned in, this is a very personal edition of Vertical Hold.
I guess the idea with that litter box would be if you had a much older cat with a medical condition, you actually needed to know this kind of thing. But yeah, it was a bit kind of odd.
It's a good bit of planning, because as you find out that your cat has a problem, you can start to gear yourself up for buying a robotic cat that can nibble on your finger when the other cat eventually starts to have problems, which is a really sad way of looking at that that robot cat that you're looking at. I'm sorry, I'm seriously going to hell.
Hey, Tiddles, we've replaced you with an electronic...
This is why my cat was so angry. I get it now. I get it.
This is why I'm a dog person.
She worried about the future. I get it.
Pretty much any given year, Razer will have like a wacky concept product. They usually do. Sometimes they even get stolen from CES. I remember that year. Yeah,
I've not seen that.
They had a triple screen laptop, like it slid out from the back.
I saw that.
And I demoed that. I demoed that in a hotel room with them. It was an amazing idea. And they showed it off on the show floor, and someone walked off with it.
Okay, that explains a lot, because I was there that year and I was supposed to have an interview with them, and it got cancelled randomly, and they wouldn't tell me why, but it was supposed to be about that laptop.
It was because Alex was really impressed with their laptop. That's all.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
Look, I
so
admit
impressed.
nothing.
We got a bigger bag.
I admit nothing, and we're at least 3 years away from the legal liability around that one. But this year, and this sort of folds in from last year, they'd shown off what they called Project Hazel, which was their version of a COVID mask. It's now the Razer Zephyr Pro, and I got really excited by this because, look, the design is very Razer. It's all kind of glowy and crap, which I don't care about.
You can see through it.
But it was a neat idea because it's got a speaker in it, so that issue of like talking to people with the mask gets removed, and it's meant to filter things and so on. But for one little problem. And the problem was that when they first put them on sale in the US, this was the Zephyr, not the Zephyr Pro, which is their new CES model, they had said that it had N95 grade filters in there. And you might be able to predict what I'm about to say. N95 grade does not mean the same thing as N95.
What does this actually mean?
Well, it turns out it probably doesn't mean anything because they've now removed all mentions of N95 from the product features that they list on the website for either mask.
So how well does the mask mask?
Well, Alex is wearing one right now, and we're about to release something into his room with just the press of a button. So let's find out.
Pepper spray. No, look, they haven't said. They're being super, super cautious about exactly, how good or bad it would be. And I guess there's legal liability things there, but I think it's super disappointing to see, really, especially considering so many of those wacky Razer concept products don't make it to market. This was the one where they said, yeah, there's a need, there's a use case, we're going to start selling these. And then it turns out, yeah, bit of a fizzer.
It's still kind of weird looking. I mean, the whole thing glows and makes you look like you've walked out of Chernobyl and are about ready to take on the world. There's a game reviewer in Melbourne at Kotaku, and I think he actually reviewed one. And I don't know if I could see myself dead in it because I struggle with the bright green Razer headphones they send me for review. I think I look terrible in those. I don't think I'm going to deal with a light up mask. What about you, Jen? Could you deal with a light up mask?
I think it sends a certain signal to people that you're definitely wearing a mask and they should stay away. So I'm actually
Exactly,
okay
that's what I
with
like
that.
about
So maybe that's beneficial.
It
I don't
sends
know.
a signal that no one wants to talk to you, so
I look
go away.
vaguely radioactive.
Exactly.
Do not come near.
I mean, if they could promise me that, it did the masking job, which I think is important not to overlook, as you point out, and maybe if it could just stop my glasses fogging up, I don't care if it's all the colours of the rainbow. If I can see out of it and I could read some food labels at the shops, then you've got yourself a purchaser. Yes.
Well, it is RGB backlit, so it can be all the colours of the rainbow, quite literally.
Well, and it could also maybe light up the food labels that I was trying to peer at through my foggy glasses. So if they can just get that one issue straight, maybe two issues straight, then yes, fine, let's go.
Razer boffins, have at it. Leigh, as someone who's very, very, very into sound, did you come across the Novetto N1 invisible headphones?
Oh God, no, I didn't. Please tell me more. This sounds just up my alley.
This.
Jen, take it away.
Well, I think the idea behind them, I mean, it looks just kind of like a random kind of cheap Bluetooth speaker that you put on a desk, but it alleges that it can point sound very directly at your ears so that only
it's
you can
sound
hear
beaming. Okay, this is not a new technology.
No, I'm sure it's not.
There was a company
it
years
sounds similar
ago
to the one that they use in the sort of smart headphone.
Yeah,
and smart glasses and things like that.
Exactly,
sound beaming's not exactly a super new concept. I think Bose has a version of LG had a version of it where you kind of wrap the speaker around your neck and it would aim sound specifically at your rough area. The problem is everyone else can hear it. Smart glasses kind of work on the same principle as well, where they aim sound in a specific way. Sound is hit and miss. Everyone has an opinion on it, but just buy a speaker, buy a real speaker, or buy a real pair of headphones. That's where I'm going to go with that one.
Also in the wacky kind of product category, although I get the utility, Sabre Smart Pepper Spray.
What
makes it smart?
So the idea is it's like pepper spray, so you use it because you're worried about being assaulted, that kind of thing. And I don't want to minimize the reality of that kind of situation or make light of it. But the idea is that when you have sprayed it at someone, predetermined people who you've defined as contacts get sent an alert to be told, Alex has just sprayed the smart pepper spray and is at these GPS locations.
Feels like it'd just be a smartphone case that has pepper spray in it, to be honest.
Actually, I would really like that. That would be awesome.
Okay, somebody please make that and launch it at CES Unveiled 2023. We'll see you there.
But let Jen know that it's going to do that before she picks it up. Otherwise, it's going to end very badly.
Oh, gosh, the review process is going to be gnarly for this one.
Not necessarily. How many people on your staff don't you like?
Let's not go
there,
man. It's just me.
The budgets of journalists are getting smaller and smaller. Support your local journalists by buying newspapers.
No, actually, not well. A wacky inclusion because it's also CES also isn't a gaming conference, but Sony talked up its next gen PlayStation VR2
It's been
as
a
well.
year since we've heard about this thing, actually, because we last heard about the controls, I think, last year around March. And it's basically now it's an updated version of it for the PlayStation 5, which is great because everyone can clearly still find a PlayStation 5. I don't have one yet, but if Sony's listening, feel free to tell me where I can get one or just send me one. Look, the PlayStation VR2 basically supports 4K screens. It's going to support eye tracking, which is important when you're actually looking inside a virtual world to help you feel more immersive. I think they've still only got the one game kind of ready for it, but the idea is to make it more immersive, and that's good because VR needs to be more immersive to really get people into it.
And they're at least not retrofitting the Move controllers onto it. They've actually
Ah,
got something
that's
designed to use with it.
That's right. But also importantly, there's no camera that's going to be monitoring you. There's cameras built into the headset, like they are on things like the HTC Vive, I guess. So you'll actually be able to track your position around your room without setting up one of those old, outdated Sony cameras that they relied on for the PlayStation 4.
There's another thing too. You mentioned Samsung before. I'm really keen on this.
Freestyle?
Well, the freestyle is good, and this is a projector we're talking about.
Yep.
No, I really like the Odyssey Arc. I
Oh,
hate
their
the
big old curved monitor.
yeah, 55-inch monitor curves, but I like the fact that they've made it so that you can actually view it vertically. So this thing can
Mm.
kind of like curve above your head. And I'm just saying, like, we've had 2 years of potentially, working from home for the people who are,
To the next
comfortable doing
two.
that. So I want to like take it to the next level. Literally, I want my screens to go up the wall like Elvis. I would like the whole, not necessarily the wall as we talked about, but just giant waves of screen that go up that I can have all the tabs in the world open at one time and try to peer at them and work out what the hell I was doing with them.
This is virtual
That's what
reality.
I
Just
would
put on a
like.
headset, Jen.
No, no. Then, like, all the robot cats will come and get me and I won't be able to tell that they're after me.
That gentle mechanical nibbling sound will give them away.
Exactly. When they start developing teeth.
Gosh.
So while the CES hysteria was also happening, there was another big tech news story which has been unfolding for a while. Google and Sonos faced off in court, and Sonos won, which a lot of people did not entirely see coming. Leigh, what was the basis of this one? What was Sonos arguing?
Patent disputes, effectively, that Google had infringed upon some of its smart speaker control issues, if that makes sense. Uh, long story short, Google effectively might have seen some behind the scenes inner working stuff of Sonos's when they were working together, and that might have inspired Google to create some products effectively.
Allegedly, yes. I
Yeah.
suppose we do have to tread carefully, but the
Yeah.
upshot of this is they lost that case. Sonos said, "Yeah, look, you've infringed our patents. We want you to license them." And Sonos has publicly said, "We would like Google to license these patents." Google hasn't exactly done that, though, have they?
No, and as a result, I mean, there's a Google Nest community thread, and it's particularly aggressive as you'd kind of expect, and it kind of just warns some of the things that will be changing in Google speakers as a result. It's really hard to I feel bad for the people who have Google speakers because this is not their fault. This is one of those instances where you just kind of expect companies to kind of come together, find a solution for the benefit of the consumers. Yeah, that ain't going to happen here. There's going to be
So what are
down.
they losing? What are people losing or potentially losing?
You won't be able to control the volume by your phone, is my understanding, on some of the speakers. You also can't control volume collectively on speaker groups. So, in Chromecast settings, you can typically group speakers together like you can on the Sonos. Sonos have had that feature. It's pretty much the main feature of a Sonos is being able to group speakers. That's what the company created its original speaker system for. You won't be able to. I guess Google can't or Sonos can't stop people from doing that. This is a technology that's been around for ages, but you can't control them entirely on those groups. So it kind of removes the ability to keep systems in sync with each other. And that's going to be frustrating for a lot of people who happen to have a lot of Google speakers around their house. I'm kind of surprised it hasn't spiraled out beyond that, because it's obviously not just Google that makes technology like this. Amazon has its Alexa speakers, and Apple obviously has its HomeKit speakers as well. Well, one of them now that the HomePod has disappeared. But it's primarily Google that's feeling the wrath of this. And I don't know if it goes outside of the US as well. My understanding is they also can't sell some of these speakers in America, but they're still selling them in Australia.
Yeah, I believe the thing is, if they didn't do this software downgrade to remove that functionality, they wouldn't be able to sell them. I've even seen some reporting that it might have affected the Pixel phones as well.
Mm.
Um, Jen, this seems to be an issue of just Google having had these close ties to Sonos back from when they were putting Google Assistant into Sonos products. Do you think it's reasonable for consumers to bear the brunt of this one?
It does seem a bit harsh. I mean, technically, I mean, if this lawsuit is correct, then it means that they've been getting the benefit of Sonos technology without actually paying for it. Without the company who's made their devices paying for it. But the issue is the consumer isn't aware of all of those deals or all of those obligations, and so we've essentially purchased an item that we thought would work in a certain way and we were promised would work in a certain way. To have that downgraded does feel like you're maybe deserving of some money back, or you've purchased something
Mm.
that it doesn't do what it says on the packet. So that's really disappointing. Um, uh, it's also completely different to the way that we currently operate, because normally, you purchase a technological item, whether that's a camera or a phone or a smart speaker, and traditionally, they get software upgrades that make them better. And at some point, those stop in order to encourage you to buy something else, but they don't tend to go backwards. And so that's going to be something that's very difficult for people to adjust to. I think, I mean, certainly, operating these speakers in groups and being able to, control the volume with one kind of swift movement is definitely a loss. But I think the biggest thing is how they're going to work out, taking away those phone controls for, controlling the volume of a speaker. Because I think that those get used a lot. I certainly have a lot of Google speakers in my house. Those controls tend to pop up and they're very easy to use. Whereas Google, some of the speakers even make it quite difficult to control the volume from the outside. They make the controls subtle on purpose for design reasons, but then to not be able to control that with your phone is going to be really disappointing. So I think the nicest thing would be if Google and Sonos could come to an understanding on this. Whether that will happen, I don't know. It seems that some technological companies get along, like Sony and Samsung, when they're putting out televisions, and then suddenly they don't again when they're putting out speakers. So it's a wait and see proposition, but ultimately consumers could be a bit worse off.
It's particularly rough in Australia, I think, as well, because we're such a Google speaker nation. I mean, in the States where this lawsuit's happened, Alexa is the vast majority of that
Mm.
market. It's why, in fact, going back to CES, you always see so much Alexa centric stuff
Not
because,
this year.
sure, but that's where the market lives.
Yeah.
Mm.
Whereas for Australia, the vast majority of what gets sold here is Google Assistant based, and it's even messier because there's this really unclear picture about what you need to do if you've got a Google Assistant speaker not made by Google. If you've got one of the ones that LG made or
Or
Panasonic
JBL.
made or JBL, yeah, there's a number of brands that have done this, and the documentation that's come out already has kind of mentioned that you might have to do some really kind of janky firmware upgrades to get them to even talk. It's not great news
It's
for
also
Australians.
it's also really difficult to convince people to. I mean, I like Sonos a lot. Almost every speaker in my house is Sonos, but I also have some Google speakers. But if you suddenly find out that Sonos is one of the main reasons stopping your speaker system from working, it's hard to kind of create that brand loyalty from someone even going from a Google speaker to a Sonos one, because it almost feels like an aggressor has started this for no reason. There's a great reason, mind
Hmm.
you. Patent infringement is a huge deal. Sonos put all that investment
And
into
they're the
making the
little guy
technology.
in this fight.
Absolutely, they are definitely a little guy, and they did the right thing by asking Google to pay for them, and Google said no and created this whole process. But if you're someone who has a Google speaker and you find out later on that the reason it's not going to work the same is because Google lost to Sonos, it may actually be very difficult, not only for you to rip out what you have and decide to go with someone else, but also to go, do you really go with that aggressor knowing that this has happened again? It's not a good look for either company. And I think that's probably what's so frustrating about it. The consumers are the losers in this one, and they both should have been thinking, okay, let's just deal with this, let's settle this, because the consumers need to be the winners regardless of all.
Well, that static sound can only mean one thing. The popcorn is done. No, wait, the other thing. It's time to wrap up another episode of Vertical Hold. Thanks to Jen and Leigh for joining me for this week's show.
Thank you.
Smoke bomb.
Thanks also to Teller. So, leaving Teller aside, because he's been rather quiet the whole ep, you're both old friends of the show. You know what's coming next, sort of. I'll start with
robotic
Jen.
cat.
Yes.
The Vertical Hold 3 questions of doom.
Oh no.
Jen, you can answer these in any order, but I'll ask all 3 up front.
Okay.
Where can people find your work online? Where can they find your social media online? And the all-new big contentious question, inspired by this week's show, given we're getting robotic cats sometime soon, what other animal should be made in a robot form for our homes and why?
Yikes. Well, I personally think that we should have robotic geckos, so that will give the cats, robotic cats, something to chase rather than, turn on their human masters. You can find me on Twitter at Jen Dudley, and you can find my work all over the shop at Daily Telegraph and the Courier Mail and Herald Sun and all those sorts of places.
Okay, Leigh, the same questions, bearing in mind that robotic geckos is already taken.
Okay, I think robotic bin chickens, because obviously we need something to look after the robotic geckos and our bins. So at least that way they'll be standing there staring at you and making sure that you throw out your food so they can consume it. Also, it'd be the Australian bird of the year, presumably. A robot bird of the
I don't
year.
think you know how bin chickens work.
I really don't. I have no. I live out in the Shire where the cockatoos are like rats, to be honest. So it's just kind of the thing. You can find me at Lilo on Twitter, and you can find me at Pickr. I'm nowhere near as impressive as Jen, but you can still find me at pickr.com.au.
And as always, you can catch us online at Vertical Hold AU on Twitter, at verticalhold.com.au, or via the Vertical Hold Facebook page. I, for one, would put my money behind the robot turtle, because you could just use it to deliver beers or snacks or that kind of stuff around the house. So like the Astro robot, but in a turtle shape. Who
Would
wouldn't
your
love that?
beer ever get to you? It's a turtle. Wouldn't it have to imitate the speed of a turtle?
I may not have thought this one fully through. It's just possible.
Beer hair. No, not that hair.
No,
the other hair.
Alex and I have problems with beer hair.
And also a reminder for regular listeners, we're thrilled to once again have Aussie Broadband as our sponsor this year, and they've given us a special promo code which gives new customers a $10 per month discount for 6 months when signing up online for an unlimited plan between NBN 50 and NBN 100 speeds. The promo code is VERTICAL, that's vertical. Hopefully that will come in handy for Australian listeners shopping around for a great broadband service. And as Adam would say were he here, thanks everyone for listening, and welcome back to Vertical Hold in 2022.
Vertical Hold is proudly brought to you by Aussie Broadband, changing the game with their award-winning network and Australian-based support.